Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life with Laurel and Laurel. And we are jumping into a month here of June. This is when we're going to be recording. We're sending out this recording to you. And our topic or our theme for this particular month in the year of 2023 is all about honesty, integrity, and I want to say holding yourself accountable is really what where we're going this month. So, Laurel, are you ready to dive into the topic of the importance of integrity with me today on our podcast?
Yes, I am. And I can't wait to follow your lead because so much is coming up for me.
I know I have so much coming up on this topic too, and I feel like it is such a wonderful topic for us to explore here on the podcast. Because when you think about, really living into a life that feels heartfelt, soulful, that you feel like you're on a path that's really meaningful and an exciting adventure for you, this word integrity is often overlooked. So let's bring it right into the conversation. And the where I love to start with this word, Laurel, is the word itself, right? The word
Yeah.
comes from the word integrate, which means to what? Bring into, to bring and integrate, to thread throughout oneself, right? And I like to go back to just the basic of what are your top values and are they integrated into your everyday life? That's a great place to begin with this because this can be a big exploration. It can feel like it might feel a little overwhelming as you start to get into it, but there are ways that we're going to help you kind of look at it. And that would be the first one that I would toss out, Laurel.
Yeah. And what was coming up for me as you were talking about it is the whole beingness, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how do you bring all that you are together?
Yeah. Yeah, right, right. And this idea of presence and embodiment that we talk so much about here on the podcast is our ability to, live fully in our being, integrate all that we are, and then be present in it all to wherever we are in that moment, right? Wherever we are, whatever situation we're in.
Yes.
Yeah, and that helps us to feel very confident and strong ultimately. Even if we have fearful parts or anxious parts, right? If we're doing the work of really developing all of us, then we will feel confident that we can show up and address whatever comes forth in life to us,
Yeah.
towards us. Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's so true when you think about the sum of your whole self, right? The sum of all of your parts and how they support each other. So maybe even as we like to do, we decide what is good and what is not good, or what is preferred, or what we try to hide or shun. When I think about integrity and being allowing all of those parts of you to be together, um and not be able to just pull out one or two to get rid of, it really does, for me at least, strengthen who I am in all of who I am, not just that which is pleasing to
hmm
others.
hmm yeah, or to myself even.
Right.
We come back to doing the shadow work, which we talked about earlier this year, is how do we integrate the parts of us that we don't even want to see and that we even want to hide, right?
Yes.
And how that can really be a powerful exercise in strengthening and owning fully who we are, using our shadow side as a way to show up more fully and more honestly and as a person of integrity if we're not hiding parts of ourselves, yeah, that we
Yeah.
don't want to see. Mm. Yeah,
Oh,
so this idea of first kind of identifying your top values. One of the ways to begin to work with it is let's just pick a value. I kind of like the value of respect. I think that oftentimes this one is one that I hear a lot from people. I want to be respected. And so I often feel like when you want to be a person of integrity, when you feel like you have a value that's being violated, like you're not feeling respected, the best way to go about doing an exploration and hopefully developing, more a sense of being really integrated in that way is looking at, how do you respect yourself and how do you respect other people? So beginning to come back to self and say, how well is respect integrated into your day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience? And how do you actually do that? So this is where sometimes it might feel a little overwhelming or it can feel complicated, but it really isn't. You can keep it simple, right? So, how do you respect other people? Do you show up on time for appointments? Do you give people time to talk as much as you talk? I just start to think of examples of how you demonstrate respect. And first and foremost, then, how do you do it for yourself too, right? So how do I respect myself? Yeah.
Yes, because some might argue that we only have the ability to do something external if we can do it with ourselves, right?
Exactly. So if we use this example, right, and we go back to even just the two little examples that I gave, are you showing up on time for yourself for your scheduled day? Do you even take the time to schedule your day to give yourself a space to flow and to move with, a sense of direction and intention throughout the day? Like sometimes these seem like small things, but the small things actually add up to be the big things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great example of it, really.
Yes. Right. And how are you respecting yourself, your needs, your wants, your desires, your commitments to yourself?
Yeah.
Because
And how do you,
deserve
go ahead.
respect.
Yes. How do you speak to yourself? If you feel like people don't speak respectfully to you, begin to look at your own inner dialogue. Don't worry too much right now about what you're saying to other people. You can look at that next, but just look at your own inner dialogue. Are you self-critical? Are you, judging yourself at every turn? Are you respectful internally of all of the choices that you're making throughout the
Yeah.
day? Yeah.
Oh, integrity is such a big word.
It is a big word, and it's really interesting because I feel like at this point in my life, I do feel like I've done so much integration work, and it helps me to feel like when we come back to this idea of confidence, which we're gonna tackle in the next season in a bigger way, is if you feel like you've integrated your values and you live your values. So integrating them means you're demonstrating them day to day, moment to moment. And when you violate them, you know it because it doesn't feel good, right? That you show up more confidently and comfortable in yourself. Like, I know who I am. I know
Yes.
how I behave in the world to others and to myself. I spent time really looking at that and working well with it and knowing I understand that about myself. Yeah.
And I love that you bring in the confidence, right? That you show up in a different way when you are living with integrity or in integrity, right? Um, it's visible. You can feel it, you can see it. And likewise, when you meet someone who is living into their integrity, it shows in how they carry themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe how they speak about themselves, how they speak about others.
Right. Yeah. Um, so the importance of integrity, what else comes up for you as we explore this topic? Um, we were having a conversation before the show started, and I feel like making really conscious choices about how we spend our time and who we spend our time with is definitely a part of this idea of the importance of integrity.
Yes.
Yeah,
And,
do you feel?
discerning, the word discernment is coming up for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can we be more discerning as we strengthen our own ability to live with integrity, right? And give ourselves permission to make the decisions of what is right for us and what is not. And again, it's such an internal indicator, I think.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that was coming up for me, and this doesn't really tie into the conversation we were having before, but just was coming in the moment, is how can we live in integrity, in our own integrity, even though we are changing, growing beings? And so
Yes.
maybe honoring myself for who I am now at this time in this season is critically important, because living with integrity doesn't mean that I will forever be who I was, uh, um,
Right.
and not give myself permission to change and grow, but really being true to myself in each moment, in each day.
Yes, yes, I love that. And I think that it really ties back into the idea of, allowing ourselves the reality of the natural growth and evolution that most of us experience in a lifetime, that we do move on and want to close chapters of our life or change roles in work, or outgrow a role in a personal relationship and want to be done with that. Like, it's okay that we are evolving and growing and changing, that we can do it with integrity, right?
Yes,
And in many ways that comes back to our communication, being able to communicate well. Yeah.
that's exactly, I could not agree more. The communication of who we are, in this time, and how we respectfully, with integrity, allow ourselves to change and grow, and maybe take on new things and let go of old things, but it really ties into communication. And
Yes.
we have to be so honest with ourselves and have that courage to be honest with others.
Yes, yes. I'm going to throw out an example here for our listeners. If you're feeling like, oh, how does this really fit into your day-to-day life? And I'm going to use one that actually Laurel helped me with a while ago, a few months ago. I was planning a trip, a long trip to go overseas with my husband. And I was really in a bit of a dilemma about, I was feeling really stressed about booking client time while I was overseas, between the time change and the reality of the trip that we were taking, which was not going to be static, like planning it all ahead of time, knowing exactly where it was going to be, but rather more dynamic, where we're going to get a car, we're going to travel around, we're going to go here and there. We're not sure where we're going to be when. And Laurel, as she listened to me, said, very innocently, but and she might have already had thought it out. I don't know, but you were willing to just say, "Hey, Laurel, have you ever thought about taking a sabbatical?" And I had not. It was like a light bulb moment in my world, because I've worked as a life coach now for 20 something years, and I've always taken trips and just figured out how to schedule clients at some point during my trips, still take vacation time, but also work on my trips. And it was an incredible moment for me of, again, right? The thought of allowing myself to do something differently, something I had never done before. And, yeah, it was an incredible experience. And so I had to think it through. And of course, I asked Laurel if she would be my backup person. So I felt like I had, people that could, someplace where my clients could go if they needed support and help while I was gone. And it really worked out well. But I think that's a great example, Laurel, of this idea of, for me, my integrity was, look, I'm here for my clients. I want to make sure I make myself available to them, because it's important. The work I do is really important. I don't want to feel like anybody's left hanging. And so I've always tried to work it out that I would be that person. But the idea of taking a break, a real break from my work, and letting somebody else step in for me as needed, was a whole new way of being for me. So thank you for that.
I'm
Yeah.
so flattered that you think I would have thought of that in advance.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it might be something that was more familiar to you, right? Something that maybe you had other people do in their life around you, or whatever, right? And for me, I guess, I always think of that word in association with more like the academic world, where people take breaks, semesters off, and they take a sabbatical or whatever. Um, and so it wasn't very familiar to me, I guess. Yeah. the
But
idea.
it fits in so nicely with living with integrity, because here you were, feeling the integrity of being there for your clients in
Right.
your role as a coach.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we are living with integrity in one area of our life, we're not living into
Mm.
the other areas. And so yourself, living with integrity as an individual who needs time to herself, living, into the integrity of being a spouse, a partner, and traveling with your husband, right? Um, and then living into the integrity of this break, this vacation, where it is going to be a fluid and dynamic experience. And if you are only holding onto one area of who you are, you miss out on the other, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can you, live into that experience with full integrity?
Right, right. And feeling like, and I think that that tests us. It also tests this idea of living in full integrity and allowing ourselves to evolve and change and grow, tests us to really look at what does it mean, right? To hold that value high and to honor it and to honor other values alongside of it, right? Just like you were talking about there. Yeah. And so this exploration is a beautiful way to feel like, um, I don't know, you're showing, I guess it goes back to showing up more fully too, like we've talked about in a past episode this year as well. Yeah.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, yeah, me too, me too. Yeah, so Laurel, as people are thinking about this integration process, one of I love the idea. I forget, I think I saw this somewhere along the way, taking workshops or whatever. Um, is you could actually make like a grid, right? So your grid would look like on the side, like if say, am I a person of integrity? How well integrated is my life? And you might make, a graph, right? Get some graph paper, whatever. So down one column, your side column, you'd put all your values, all the values you can think of that are really important to you. And then across the top, you might put the areas of your life, right? So relationships, work, recreation, athletics, or whatever is important, all the areas of your life. And then start to look at, right, each one of those values, how well is it integrated in each area of your life? And if you want to get minute, more intense, more, taking that magnifying glass and really looking tight, you could take each one of those, like looking at honesty in my area of relationships. Now I'm looking at every single relationship. I'm looking at the different areas of the relationship, like um, showing up on time, communication, right? Like going through like different areas of relationships that are important, and then saying, "Am I honest here? How well integrated am I in this activity, in these relationships?" Right. So, for those of you that are wondering, how do I know if I'm a person of integrity? How do I know if I'm doing this integrity thing right? This is a way to do it. It's a great way to do it. And I think in the world today, I want to go back and forth between this idea of the specifics, like being specific, right? Uh, I want to be clear with my word in my relationships. And then also allowing yourself, right, when you're with somebody to feel into, does this feel like a person of integrity? Do I feel like I can trust this person? And really learning how your being registers different values, right? So I know for me, I get a really kind of a weird feeling in my chest when I'm around somebody who I don't think is really being honest in their conversation, right? And I just allow that to be there. And I then am on guard a little bit, wondering what can I believe, and let's just listen and see what's coming up in the conversation to get more specific about whether, there's things here that don't really run true and to me. And and then how can I maybe flush that out a little bit if I really feel like I need to in order to maintain this relationship. So I think it's a little bit of a dance, don't you think, Laura, with this kind
I
of
do.
specific and feeling. Yeah, trusting
Yes.
and feeling. Yeah.
And so much of it for me comes up in the feeling, right? It's,
Mhm.
integrity really is a feeling for me. And maybe it is that, tied into the knowingness, right? And I think it's hard for me to decide if someone else is living into their own integrity, right?
Yes,
Like,
right.
I can feel a disconnect, but that is a feeling that is, maybe being something is off in a measurement to my internal indicators, right?
Right, right.
Not, it's that fine line with, if I am acting in integrity with who I am and what I value, often that doesn't allow room for judgment of others,
Hmm.
right? And so how am I, if I find myself making decisions about someone else's actions or behavior, am I living in integrity to what my values are? If
Good.
I am striving to be non-judgmental and an observer and curious, right? So
Right.
it's this is a tricky one.
It is. It is. And yet I think that it pushes us again, it pushes us to be more accountable to ourselves. And I think we mentioned that at the beginning too.
Yes,
Like this
yes,
so much integrity is so much about being accountable to yourself first and foremost, and then to other people. Because if you feel like you are a person of integrity, right, you first have to do that respect thing or whatever for yourself, and then it goes outward from there. And
yes,
sometimes, when we're honoring ourselves, it might be that we can't honor what somebody else wants from us in a moment, right, or in a
yes.
situation. Yeah, yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
we've come full circle now.
We have, and I hope that for our listeners, we've shed some light on a word that I think is important in the world today. I think that many of us wonder, with I think all the social media and all the talk, the political talk, and persuasive, influential kind of talk that's going on out in the world today to get you to listen to me, believe me, whatever, is we have to come home to self and know, right, what our indicators are. I love the way that you describe that. What are your internal indicators that allow you to feel like, oh, I feel like this person is in integrity with what they're saying, and so I am going to allow some trust to start with, and then see where it goes. Yeah.
Yes, to honor that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Laurel, any other journaling ideas for our clients today and our listeners out there that might be wanting to work on this a little bit more for themselves? Yeah.
Well, I love
Yeah.
that you brought up the values. I think that values assessment, or the doing the inventory of your own values, is the first step and a really important step in um in living with integrity, right? And
Yeah.
because if we don't know our values, how can we live with
Yeah.
integrity? And then maybe even as you're doing that assessment, think about, which do you feel like maybe you need to focus in on? Which do you need more practice with?
Yeah, yeah. The word that keeps coming up for me, which I would invite our friends to explore a little bit more too, is the word commitment and how that relates to integrity for ourselves, right? And for how we're showing up in our day-to-day lives. So, how committed are you to your relationships? How committed to you are you to your schedule each day, keeping your schedule, keeping your time? How committed are you to whatever it is you're trying to develop in your life right now? And how do you actually demonstrate that commitment? Yeah, because I do think somehow the word commitment and integrity for me go hand in hand, and maybe we can come back and explore that a little bit more in another episode. How about
I
you,
think
Laurel?
that would be great.
Do those kind of come together for you too?
Yeah, and I think it for me it comes right into the commitment to yourself,
Mhm.
right? If I mean, I think you mentioned this at the beginning. If we are not living with integrity, we may be not honoring the commitments that we should to ourselves to be who we are and to trust and respect what we need and want, right? If we're focused on living our commitment to others and it creates a conflict with what we need ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's a hard part of you know sometimes we put other people first, and if we are ignoring what we need, are we living in integrity?
right, right. And I think that comes back to each individual situation to be taken on its own. I know for me, and I was in the throes of motherhood and taking care of little children. Of course they had to come first. I had to keep them safe, right? And yet over time, it was important that I also started to then, prioritize time for me again as I was developing myself, beyond motherhood. So yeah, I think that yeah, this is why we can't do blanket kind of statements with all of this, and we can't just judge it outright. This is the right way to do it because again, it's a dance for each one of us to do for ourselves and explore and understand for each time and phase of life we go through. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay. I guess we'll wrap it up there for now, but we will be back for more beautiful work, beautiful life, won't we, Laurel?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for being with me again today.
Yeah, you bet. All right. We'll see everybody next time on Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. Bye for now.
Bye.